Today, we're looking at a purple ink by Herbin Cacao du Bresil. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. There's timestamps down below so that if you want to skip around, you can, but if you got the time, check out the entire video. You can follow me over on Instagram, and don't forget to subscribe. In order to make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Duke 209 with a Fude nib. I used it to write for a day, and then used it to take the notes for this video. In order to have some standardization while looking at writing samples, I always use Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper, although there are additional writing samples that occur much later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it came in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen. We do see some color variations. They're very slight to spot, but right in the middle of the Herbin, it gets a bit lighter. So it's there, just not tons of it. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, some spots of shading that are occurring throughout, 9 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen, very nice shading. It's much more pronounced here than it is here, even though their tone's really the same. 16 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both, do show some color variation, and we do get it in that writing. Tomoe River, no bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting. The 1.1 with no feather spread, halo sheen, or shade. Extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 14 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, we do get spots of shading that occur throughout on the medium. Nice. It could just be that they're easier to see like it was on the Clairfontaine. 25 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both show us no color variation, although we see some in the medium. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 with no feather spread, halo sheen, some color variation, not a ton, but it's definitely there. Look at the U in do, the R in Herbin, a little bit lighter letters. Extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 10 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. We do see peppering of shading that's going on. Look at the word quick where it goes darker to lighter to darker. Brown goes darker to lighter. So it's there. It's nice. 19 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine and the medium show us some color variation, although it's really not showing up in the extra fine. I agree with Vita that I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And what we see on the very bottom is this very light purple, and it pushes its way up and we start to see this very light brown. And then on top of that, a darker purple occurs again. Now the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And that lighter purple that was at the bottom is really seeped in on the line, looking much, much darker. It isn't budging. You start to see some water separation between that line and the light brown that occurs next. And at the very top, we see even less of that second purple. It's nowhere near as dark the second time. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use this in a note-taking situation. That would be bad. Water is lifting some of the darkest tones of the ink off this paper. Now, water's all that I use to get this out of my pen. I didn't have to go any farther. Pen Flush does everything that water does and really nothing more with the paper. Now, I do think that if water wasn't enough for some reason, that the Pen Flush would likely do it. It does look like it's beginnings of some of the breakdown of that purple that's left. But if you needed the 1/3 bleach solution, it does completely remove it from the paper. It's leaving some yellow staining behind. I don't think you're going to need this. It is a Herbin ink after all. I test ink viscosity with a tilt test that I'll link somewhere. Now for the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with the realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Herbin's Cacao du Bresil has a viscosity of 1.4, making this a very wet ink. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples, and for the inks I've tested, I found an average dry time of 17 seconds, with the realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Herbin's Cacao du Bresil has a dry time of 16 seconds, making it normal. Instead of finding inks that look like Herbin's Cacao du Bresil, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. So I went with a nice magenta, and I chose Robert Oster's Burgundy. The second writing sample is done on Apica CD, Franklin Christoph, and black and red paper. Here we're looking at Apica CD notebooks. Now we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, spots of shading going on. The extra fine is lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. We do see some spots of the shading here, so where it wasn't so much on other papers, it is this time. 6 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine with no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading more pronounced than we got with the extra fine, but it's still the same shading. 11 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both far left to far right do show some color variation, and we're getting it. So, alright. Franklin Christoph paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is the same tone as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 4 seconds to dry. Medium is the same tone as the extra fine and the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 6 seconds to dry. Scrubby for both show us no color variation, and we didn't get any. Last up is black and red notebooks, which have no bleeding and no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does have spots of shading that are occurring. It's most noticeable if you look at how dark the word "the" is, how light "over" is. Brown goes from darker down to lighter, so it's there. 3 seconds to dry. Medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. With no feather spread, halo sheen, the shade is more pronounced here, just as it's been in other papers, but everywhere we're really getting it up here, we get it down here, easier to see. Look at how over goes very nice from light to dark. The, light to dark. Brown goes light to mid to, dark to mid to dark. So it's much nicer here. 4 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows color variation, so does the medium. And we got color variation in the writing, and that is all that I have for writing samples. So what do I think of Herbin's Cacao du Bresil? It can shade given the right pen and paper combination, but not all the time. And the tone of this ink feels quite a bit off to me, to where this is absolutely not an ink for me. So what nib and pen is going to give the best writing experience with this ink? And this was difficult to find because largely I did not enjoy this tone at all. I wound up figuring that a medium flow, medium nib gave the most acceptable version of this ink for me. I'm going to remind you that I'm here every day with a new ink review. Thanks for watching.